Hello, and welcome to part 2 of our video that is a review of percents, discounts, and markups. Alright, so number 8, a jacket that originally cost $25 was discounted 40%. Write an equation that represents how much money was discounted. Alright, so your job is to just write the equation for each scenario, okay? It is not to write the answer, so you do not have to write the answer. But you do need the percent equation. If you don't have the percent equation written down, you did not answer the question correctly. All right, so let's first understand this. You are finding the amount that's discounted, okay, not the price after the discount. You are finding the amount that is discounted. All right, so the amount of money that is discounted is represented by 40%. All right, you start at $25 and then it is discounted 40%. Okay, so you are actually inputting, you are using the 40% into your percent equation. So part equals percent as a decimal times your whole. So when we input, we're going to input x equals, or you could change it to p, you could change it to j, you could change it to whatever you want. P is equal to, or x is equal to 0.40 times 25. Again, we are using 0.40 and not 0.60. Because this is the amount that's discounted, not the price after the discount. All right. Here is question 9. A sweater that originally cost $30 was discounted 10%. Write an equation that represents how much the selling price was. So here, if we understand the question correctly, you're finding the selling price, not the amount that's discounted. All right. You are finding the cost after the discount. So it's discounted 10%. What are you actually paying for? You're paying for 90%. So you would do 0.90 times 30. So x equals 0.90 times 30. Let's look at number 10. Write an equation that shows what number is 15% of 60. All right, so here you are given the percent, 15%. So you're going to input your percent as a decimal. It would be 0.15. And then your whole is 60. 60 represents 100%. Your job is to figure out what 15% of that is. So your equation for that would be part, or x, is equal to 0.15 times 60. Okay, the next question is the restaurant bill is $45. Write an equation to show how much total you paid after leaving a 20% tip. Okay, so here you're finding the total bill, which is $45, right, plus the tip. Right? So the total bill represents 100%, and the tip represents 20%. So you are actually finding 120% of 45. Okay, so again, think about it like this. $45 represents 100%. You are also leaving a 20% tip, so you need to add 100% plus 20%, and you end up with 120%. So your job is to find 120% of $45. So your percent as a decimal would be 1.20 times the whole, times 45. And we didn't actually have to solve this problem. We just needed to find the equation. So that's the equation, and I'm just going to move on. All right, number 12. The original cost of a shirt was $20. It was marked up 6%. Write an equation to show the selling price. This equation is to find the selling price, not how much it was marked up. Okay? It is not, you are not using 6% in your part equals percent as a decimal times your whole. You are using 106% because it's marked up 6%. So it's whatever this $20 is, right? $20 represents 100% plus 6% additional. So 100 plus 6% gets you 106%. So you are finding 106% of $20. So this is the information that you really need to input into our percent equation. It's 1.06%, or sorry, 106%, sorry, as a decimal is 1.06, and then times your whole, times 20. All right. Then for number 13, you have the original cost of a laptop is $800. There is a 7% tax added to that. you want to write an equation that shows the final amount that you paid. So let's understand this. You have a laptop that costs you $800. There's an additional 7% tax that you are paying. All right, so the final amount that you pay. So in total, right, your total has to be over $800. It has to be. Okay, so you are finding 100%, which is $800, plus the additional 7%. Okay, so you're finding 107% of $800. So when we input this into our percent equation, this is the information that we need, 107% of $800. So 107% as a decimal, move it 2 places to the left, you get 1.07 times 800. That would be your equation that you're using to solve. All right, number 14. 25 is 20% of what number? So this is a straight part equals percent as a decimal times your whole problem. Straight problem. So 25 is, your part is, anytime you see is, you want to think equals. So 25 is a part, is equals 20%. Well, obviously that goes in our percent as a discount. So, or sorry, percent as a discount. Percent as a decimal, sorry about that. So 20% as a decimal would be 0.20. And then times your whole, which you don't know what your whole is. So I'm just going to put it as a W. All right, so again, 25 is your part because this 25 represents only 20%. It does not represent 100%. Your job is to figure out what number actually does represent 100%. All right, so your equation should be 25 equals 0.20 times W. When you go to solve this, right, W, you need to get that to be a low. So W right now is being multiplied by 0.20. So you need to divide both sides by 20, or you need to divide both sides by 0.20 in order to get rid of this 0.20, right? So that cancels out these 0.20s, and you're left with W on the right to be equal to 125. I'll make this so that you can actually see it better. Is equal to W. All right, so you have W on the right, and then you have 25 divided by 0.20, which gets you 125. So 25 is technically 20% of the number that you just found, 125. All right, for the next problem, what number is 30% of 200? Well, your percent needs to go where it says percent as a decimal. Instead of 30%, we're going to input 0.30. 200 would be your whole, because, so you're figuring out what 30% is. You know that the total is 200, but you only want 30% of that 200. Okay, if you had 200 questions on a test and you only scored 30% correct, you need to figure out how many questions you got correct on your test. Okay, so your part, you don't know what your part is because that represents 30%. Okay, your percent as a decimal, 30% as a decimal, move the 2 places over to the left, you get 0.30, and then your whole is 200. So 0.30 times 200, that gets you 60. Okay, so what number is 30% of 200? 60 is 30% of 200. And then for the last question, number 16, 10 is what percent of 70? All right, like I said, is pertains to equals. So 10 is equal to. Okay, 10 is your part, is your equals. What percent? You don't know what your percent is, so I'm just going to call that X. You can call it Y, you can call it whatever you want, or P times your whole, which is 70. All right, so I actually called it P here. So my equation should be part is 10. 10 is, part is 10, is equals, what percent? You don't know, so I called it P, times the total amount, or your whole, which is 70. All right, so at this point, divide both sides by 70, and when you do that, when you do that, the 70s, they cancel out on the right, and you are left with 0.14 is equal to P. But the tricky part with this question is that 0.14 represents the percent as a decimal. Your job is to change it back to a percent. So you need to move it 2 places over to the right